On a crisp October morning in 2022, 12-year-old Ethan Warren walked the 3 blocks from First Protestant Church to his home in Pine Hollow, Idaho, a journey he'd made hundreds of times before. He never arrived. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today. For Rachel Warren, 58, and her husband Daniel, 61, that day marked the beginning of a nightmare that would test their marriage, their faith, and their sanity. But unlike thousands of missing children cases that grow cold with time, theirs would end with an improbable reunion, thanks to a mother's refusal to surrender to despair, a chance glance at Google Maps, and what some might call divine intervention. The police did everything by the book, Rachel tells me, her weathered hands clasped tightly around a coffee mug in her Pine Hollow kitchen. They searched within the first 24 hours, interviewed Ethan's friends, checked sex offender registries, but as days turned to weeks and weeks to months, the trail went cold. After 2 years of pursuing false leads, a sighting at a mall in Boise, a boy resembling Ethan on a Greyhound bus to Portland, their case had slipped from the headlines, relegated to occasional mentions on missing persons websites and faded posters on community bulletin boards. People started avoiding us at church, Daniel admits, his voice gravelly with emotion. They didn't know what to say anymore. Their lives went on while ours remained frozen in time. The Warrens had once been pillars of their small community. Daniel ran a successful hardware store, and Rachel worked as an administrator at their church. Their faith had been the bedrock of their life together. When Ethan disappeared, Daniel stopped attending services, Rachel says. He couldn't reconcile a loving God with what happened to our son. I went the opposite direction. I clung to my faith like a drowning woman. It nearly tore us apart. The morning that changed everything began unremarkably. Rachel was scrolling through Google Maps, planning their route to the police station in New York City. They'd traveled across the country on yet another tenuous lead, an anonymous caller claiming to have seen a boy matching Ethan's description at a homeless outreach event near Bryant Park. I was just familiarizing myself with the area, Rachel explains, when I clicked on Street View and started virtually walking the neighborhood. That's when I saw him, or at least, I saw a blue hoodie identical to the one Ethan was wearing when he disappeared. The hoodie, with its distinctive baseball logo on the back, had been a birthday gift from Rachel just weeks before her son vanished. In the pixelated image, a young boy wore it while walking beside a tall man in dark clothing. Their faces were blurred, as is standard in Google's Street View images. Daniel thought I was grasping at straws, Rachel says. He'd seen me fixate on blue hoodies before, only to be disappointed. But something felt different this time. Despite her husband's skepticism, Rachel marked the location, a small Protestant church on Mole Street, not far from Bryant Park. After their appointment with Detective Morris, she insisted on attending the evening service at that very church. I told Daniel I needed to pray, she says. But truthfully, I wanted to see the church for myself. Call it Mother's intuition or the Holy Spirit's guidance. I felt pulled there. Daniel reluctantly dropped her off, agreeing to pick her up in an hour. Inside the cool, dim sanctuary, Rachel took a seat in the back pew. As she waited for the service to begin, a man entered, tall, distinguished, wearing clerical attire. Rachel's heart nearly stopped. It was Evangelist Matthew, she whispers, leaning forward. He had visited our church in Pine Hollow just 2 weeks before Ethan disappeared. I had coordinated his visit myself, arranged his lodging, organized his healing service. He seemed surprised to see me, but quickly recovered. As they exchanged pleasantries, Rachel noticed something protruding from his breast pocket, a photograph partially visible, showing what appeared to be a young boy. When the evangelist shifted, he hastily tucked it deeper into his pocket. I called Daniel immediately, Rachel says. He thought I was being paranoid, but he came anyway. We followed the evangelist after the service to a house in a residential neighborhood. A woman loaded suitcases into his car, and then a young blonde boy emerged, not Ethan. Daniel was ready to return to their hotel, convinced Rachel's suspicions were unfounded, but as they drove away, Rachel spotted the evangelist's car again, this time parked near a community center by Bryant Park. Inside, a group was gathering for what they later learned was a support program for foster children. That's when I saw him, Rachel says, her voice breaking. My Ethan, older and thinner with shorter hair, but unmistakably my son. He was helping younger children with juice and snacks. When our eyes met, he dropped the cup he was holding. What followed was chaos, tears, accusations, police sirens. Ethan, who had been told his parents died in a car accident, couldn't believe they were alive. The other children with the evangelist watched in confusion as officers separated them, escorting the evangelist and his female assistant to squad cars. The truth emerged slowly over the following days. Evangelist Matthew, whose real name was Derek Lanton, had been operating a devastating scheme for years. He would visit churches across the country, identify vulnerable children, then arrange to accidentally encounter them alone. He would tell them their parents had been in a terrible accident, drive them to a fake funeral where they'd see doctored photos of their parents in caskets, then whisk them to another state where they became part of his ministry orphanage. He used religion as both a shield and a weapon, Daniel says bitterly. Who questions a respected evangelist traveling with children he claims are orphans? He moved them frequently between states, keeping them hidden in plain sight at religious boarding houses and dormitories. In total, authorities found 7 children living under Lanton's control. All had been reported missing from different states over the past 3 years. All had been told their parents were dead. All had been kept isolated, allowed to interact only with carefully selected community organizations that reinforced Lanton's cover story. The most devastating part, Rachel says, was learning that Ethan had been in New York the entire time, just 1 day's drive from where we made posters, held vigils, and prayed for his return. Lanton used psychological manipulation to keep the children compliant. They weren't physically restrained, but they were emotionally imprisoned by lies. When asked how he's adjusting to life back home, Rachel glances toward the living room where Ethan, now 14, is reading. The healing process is slow. He has nightmares, he struggles to trust, but he's alive and he's home. Daniel reaches for his wife's hand across the kitchen table, a gesture that speaks volumes about their own healing journey. We don't take anything for granted anymore, he says. Not our son, not our marriage, not even the simple blessing of knowing where your child is sleeping at night. For the Warrens, their incredible reunion offers hope to other families with missing children. Rachel has started a support group and frequently speaks at churches and community centers about trusting one's instincts when searching for a loved one. That day in New York, I could have dismissed what I saw on Google Maps as another false hope, Rachel says. I could have ignored my suspicions about the evangelist. Daniel wanted to. The police might have. But a mother knows her child. A mother never stops searching. As for Ethan, he's gradually reclaiming his interrupted childhood. He's back in school, surrounded by supportive friends and family. The psychological scars remain, but so does his resilience. Sometimes I still can't believe they found me, he says quietly, from the doorway, having overheard our conversation. Mum always said God works in mysterious ways. I guess sometimes he works through Google Maps too. Derek Lanton awaits trial on multiple charges of kidnapping, fraud, and child endangerment. His female accomplice, Carla Benson, has agreed to testify against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. The other children have been reunited with their families, each with their own miraculous story of being found against impossible odds. For the Warrens, their ordeal has transformed from an unending nightmare into a powerful testimony. As Rachel walks me to my car, she points to a small cross hanging from her rearview mirror. Faith isn't just about church services and Bible verses, she says. Sometimes faith means trusting that still, small voice inside when everyone else tells you to give up. Sometimes it means following a digital breadcrumb trail across the country because your mother's heart won't let you rest until you find your child. She pauses, gazing at the mountains that surround their small Idaho town. And sometimes faith means discovering that the miracle you've been praying for has been within reach all along, just waiting for the right moment to be revealed. If you found this story touching, please remember to like and subscribe for more emotional stories of loss and discovery. This is based on events that happen more often than we realize, so share it with someone who needs to hear this.